The date, September 11. In numeric terms, 911, our national emergency response number. But the horrifying events happened so quickly, few had time to dial it. Two hijacked airliners full of explosive flight fuel slam into New York's packed World Trade Center towers. A third crashes into the Pentagon, while a fourth forced down outside of Pittsburgh. Here's Lori Dew with the story.
It started just before 9 a.m. Eastern Time, with word that a plane had crashed into one tower of New York's World Trade Center. It could have been an accident until this.
We just saw another one. We just saw another one. Another plane just flew into the second tower. This has to be deliberate, folks.
And Americans watched in shock as a second jetliner flew straight into the second tower.
Get back, let's go!
I'm standing on the corner watching, taking pictures. You can see the wings of the plane come from the south and hit the middle of the second building.
We're walking the dogs and we saw a plane flying really low, a small jet, and it flew directly into the World Trade Center, and then all the pieces fell to the bottom in seconds.
It was chaos.
Just get out of the tunnel and the blue.
Later, this dramatic tape of the first strike comes in. It's a Boeing 767 out of Boston's Logan Airport. But the terror is not confined to New York. At 9:40 a.m., another hijacked jetliner slams into the Pentagon, where some 24,000 people work. Miraculously, the structure survives. The Trade Center does not. Built in the mid-1960s, the World Trade Center towered over Manhattan, each tower 110 stories. Over 40,000 people work in the two buildings. It is still unclear how many people were in the towers when the planes crashed, and how the evacuation was going an hour later when we watched aghast as the towers collapsed. The skyline of Manhattan has changed forever. New York's Twin Towers are gone.
Pictures this of the second of the two World Trade Center towers collapsing.
Oh my God. There's been a huge explosion. Everyone's running in the other direction. There's been a huge explosion. Everyone's running for their lives, literally. Police, media. I see a woman pushing a baby carriage.
No, I'm all right. Let me go. I saw the building falling down.
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
So people jumping from the building.
I had just gotten out of the building. I was crossing the street when I heard some rumbling. I saw someone coming off the top of the building. I just ran. I didn't know where to go. My first reaction was to go down into a subway stop just to get some cover, because I felt this cloud of all this stuff, the stuff coming down, the debris, and I thought that was the best, smartest thing, but I got stuck in there for a while. It was pitch dark.
And now, all we are left with are questions. Who could have done this? What is the toll in human lives?
What happened was I was down in the basement. All of a sudden we heard a loud bang, and the elevator doors blew open. Some guy was burnt up, so I dragged him out. His skin was all hanging off. So I dragged him out and I pulled him out of the parking lot. This was what was left on him.
And what will happen now? In New York, Lori Dew, Fox News.
For millions of TV viewers watching around the world, the scenes unfolding at the Pentagon and World Trade Center seemed like a Hollywood movie or a nightmare that wouldn't disappear in the light of day. But for the thousands of people at Ground Zero, it was horribly real. Here are some of their stories.
Back up, everybody! Back up! Keep going! It's about 12 minutes. 10:31. 10:31.
He was still behind the building.
Well, when we got down to the bottom floor, we thought we were okay, and then there was a collapse. We don't know what collapsed. There was a collapse of something. The police and fire department told us to go run to the wall and don't look outside. Next thing we know, billowing black smoke just came in, and I mean, it went down my mouth, up my nose, all over the place, and people were hysterical at that time.
Keep going. You're okay.
There was a big shaking. Some of the ceilings collapsed. Looks like there was a fire in the elevator shafts. What did
The
you
whole
feel?
floor shook, the building was shaking, and it felt like a bomb hit or a plane hit or something like that. But the whole floor was
plane
shaking.
did hit.
A plane did hit. Yeah, and then we looked out the window, all we saw was debris all over the place. But we thought the building was going to topple over. It was going so
Well, one of them did.
One of them did. We were in Tower 1. We made it out.
We do need to put it down now. I think we need to put it down now. Here we go.
The one just got out of the tunnel in the blue.
The subway tunnel?
Yeah.
The subway.
Yeah.
I saw the building falling down. Saw people jumping from the building from the 100th floor, and I saw the building just coming down. What are you doing?
We just felt a big explosion. I didn't know what after the fact that we talked about, knew it was a plane. I was on the way down. It was pretty calm. There's some small fires, and from the 85 on below, there were small fires and some floods, but it wasn't that bad. And I had just gotten out of the building. I was crossing the street when I heard some rumbling. I saw someone coming off the top of the building. I just ran.
There was nowhere to run. People were just falling down on top of each other. People were, panicking. They were scared. Here's a 100-foot, here's a 100-story building just collapsing, coming down. Where do you run? You couldn't help nobody. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. If you didn't have an oxygen tank, you couldn't even go in there. You couldn't because of the debris. Concrete would just choke you. All this white that you see in the street is concrete. It's concrete. This is all concrete that you're looking at. Everybody's pretty much depressed, but until we actually get numbers and find out what the actual story is, we can only hope and pray for the best.
All right, go down here to change it.
My heart broke. My heart bleeds for everybody in there. Civilians, firefighters, police.
You were supposed to be on the 22nd floor?
That's right.
Yeah, but I don't have a cell phone.
What? You were on your way into work?
And I was late. I guess it wasn't my number.
All right, what are you going to be doing for the next hour?
It wasn't my number.
Close to 5,000 people remain unaccounted for. When we return, the search for the living continues. Please stay with us.
You wouldn't believe the feeling that you have inside when you're watching these events take place on television.
Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended.
Has a basket with two workmen in there taking a look at the structure, and this fits in with what some Pentagon officials were telling us earlier today. They believe that they can have all of the debris cleared out of the Pentagon, all the wreckage from the fuselage of the airplane. They believe they can have it all cleaned out within 30 days. 30 days, quite a difference here in Arlington, Virginia, compared to obviously what's going on in New York. Officials continue the grim task inside the C and D rings, a little farther inside the Pentagon, of trying to pull out some of the bodies. A number of officials have said it's simply undescribable. But again, the effort continues here at the Pentagon around the clock. Rick, back to you.
David Schuster, thank you very much. We'll be checking back in at the Pentagon, and we'll be going to Lower Manhattan, where the search in the rubble continues there. Stay tuned to Fox News Channel. Our continuous coverage starts again right now with David Asman.
Welcome back to our Fox News special report, Terrorism Hits America. I'm David Asman. It'll be some time before we learn the identities of the hundreds, more likely thousands of people who lost their lives in the fiery hell that was once the World Trade Center and part of the Pentagon. It is a very grim task, but a task that must be done. Here's John Scott with that report.
The awful, ugly horror of these attacks is now. The comprehension, the absorption of them is well down the road. Learning the names and faces of those who died is an important step, because knowing the victims gives us individuals to mourn. Among the first to die in the attacks was 52-year-old John Oganowski. Oganowski of Massachusetts was the pilot of American Airlines Flight 11, the first of 2 planes that smashed into the World Trade Center. He was remembered Tuesday in his hometown church.
You wouldn't believe the feeling that you have inside when you're watching these events take place on television and then realize that it's somebody that you grew up with.
His co-pilot, Tom McGinnis, age 42, was also remembered in a similar service in neighboring New Hampshire. McGinnis was married with 2 children. They were only 2 of the 93 people aboard Flight 11. Among the other victims, David Angel, 54, executive producer of Frasier. His wife Lynn was traveling with him. Also aboard, Barry Berenson, the widow of actor Anthony Perkins. Aboard United Flight 77, Barbara Olson, age 45, a frequent guest on the Fox News channel. She placed a cell phone call to her husband, Solicitor General Theodore Olson. She told him that the flight had been hijacked by attackers using knives. Other relatives also received the same kind of desperate phone calls in the flight's final moments.
He said, "I want to let you know that I love you. And I'm flying. I think he said I'm in the air. I'm calling you on the air phone of the airplane."
On the ground, even the rescuers became victims.
We lost the deputy chief of the fire department and the chief of the department.
6 victims, 6 of thousands, in an attack so brutal it seems impossible to comprehend. In New York, 10,000 are feared dead. At the Pentagon, the number is 800. What we know is that the dead are young and old, men and women, girls and boys. They come from places like Stoneham, Portsmouth, and Long Beach. One of the most remarkable stories comes from aboard United Airlines Flight 93. Reports say a passenger, Jeremy Glick, called his family and told them the plane had been hijacked and that all aboard were going to die. Glick also said he and the other passengers were going to try to stop the hijackers from succeeding in their attempt to destroy a government installation. He told his family he loved them and hung up. Apparently, their efforts succeeded. Flight 93 crashed in a wooded area outside Pittsburgh. It's believed that their actions saved a Washington landmark. As the tragedy deepens, there will be many more stories of heroism and many more names and faces to mourn.